I think the moment when Harry was kind of shocked back into reality was when Charles got cancer. But he kind of got the cold shoulder. You know, people might remember he just ran over to Britain straight away, dropped everything. Actually, Charles had known for a couple of weeks, but Harry seemed to find out right around about the same time we did. He dropped everything, flew to Britain, and then he only got about 30, 45 minutes with his father before Charles flew to Sandringham. He then came to Britain again in the May, you know, that was the February. He came to Britain again in May, didn't see his father, but his spokesperson released a statement at the time saying he hoped to see him soon, and that still hasn't happened yet. So from Harry's point of view, I think that really is what shocked him back to reality, to realise that he did have to do more to help this relationship. And, you know, I think Meghan, I'm not completely writing off Meghan's relationship with Netflix at this time. Like, clearly she is not going to become an interstellar TV producer, and nor is Harry. You know, we've seen so much of the content that they've produced. It's the recent stuff has been very bland and very vanilla, and it's, you know, nothing really is going to suddenly change there, and they're not going to turn into the next Shonda Rhimes, or you know, it's not going to happen. But Netflix has an equity share. You know, they have an equity stake in Meghan's company as ever, which actually does have the potential to earn them huge amounts of money. One key thing, though, Harry has very little going on at the moment.
Well,
and
I was going to ask, because I want to talk to you about the Netflix deal, but before we move on from this, there was something that I found interesting is there was a period, you know, as you've just mentioned last year, you know, when Harry came over here and we were hearing a lot about sort of what was going on with their relationship. He was by his father's side and he said that he wasn't able to catch up with him in May. There's been, after the BBC interview, a period of relative quiet in terms of where their relationship was at. Why do you think now, very much now, we're hearing so much about it?
I think it's...
Where's it coming from is, I guess, what I'm asking.
So that BBC interview was a huge moment, and, you know, Harry clearly experienced, like, restraint collapse, basically. He'd clearly gone in. I'm sure that they had that interview booked in the diary before they knew the outcome of the case, and Harry probably imagined that he was going to go in there and give this plea for reconciliation with his family. Then he saw he lost the case and just was furious about it, and so he started, you know, giving these swipes at Charles in the middle of this interview that was supposed to be calling for reconciliation. And so I thought that that had a huge potential to blow any chance that he had, but it is promising to see these new meetings taking place. I think the reason behind it, though, is fundamentally because Harry had a clear out, and Meghan had a clear out of their PR team on both sides of the Atlantic. They brought new people in who have come with new energy and a real determination to move the dial in terms of public opinion, move the dial in terms of media coverage of the Sussexes, and, you know, that comes with it, move the dial in terms of the relationship with the palace.
And so we know what's happened so far. We know that the meetings happened. We've had this report about the diary being shared. What do you expect may happen with this situation now down the line in terms of Harry coming here, him having face-to-face possibly with the King?
I think he's trying to get reconciliation before the King goes. I mean, he did obviously say in that BBC interview, I don't know how much longer my father has left, and obviously dropped a bunch more bombshells in that interview. It wasn't that long ago, so it's kind of crazy now that they're trying to share diary slots and trying to figure out how he can kind of get back in with the royal fold, because Queen Elizabeth II did say, you can't have it both ways. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out royals. I don't want that. And I think that this is really betraying what she wanted for them. They need to choose. I just don't agree with this hybrid situation. They're like typical millennial royals who want to do like gig economy jobs in the royal family or something. I don't exactly know what their whole plan is. It's a very confused strategy. And I do agree that they've got a better team who's clearly trying to fashion something out of this. But I just think it's a very confused, dilapidated thing, and I don't see it going anywhere.
You don't think we'll see them in the room together? You don't think we'll see Harry and the King actually sit down in the coming months?
I think there's a chance we will, but I do think Charles is going to need to be slightly dragged into it. I think Charles got to a point after his diagnosis where I think he took a decision that he needed to protect his peace, and that his younger son was causing him a significant amount of stress and anxiety in his life. And so he took a decision that he needed to focus on his health and getting back to the place that he needed to be, and that meant not exhaustingly spending all of his time kind of running around after Harry. And so Harry is going to have to show Charles that having a relationship is not going to be exhausting and draining for him. if Harry's serious about wanting to repair that relationship. And so it's going to have to be softly, and Harry's probably going to have to soak some stuff up along the way. Charles has soaked up a huge amount of pain, and without turned the other cheek, not fought back, except in small ways like taking Frogmore Cottage away. And it's Harry's turn. Harry's going to have to soak up a lot as well.
It's funny, just anecdotally, that's reminded me of one of the saddest lines in Spare that really stayed with me. It's right at the beginning. It's just really reminded me.
I already know what you're going to say, but say it.
I always think about it because it was before the king was diagnosed with cancer, as far as we know, because this goes back a couple of years. And Harry writes himself that Charles looked at him and William and said, "Please, boys, don't make my final years a misery." Now, I thought of that when you just said that, because it is. I mean, we've seen, assuming that Harry's account of that is true, which I mean, no reason to doubt that line. That does say a lot about his character and how he's viewing these final years, and then you add cancer to that, and that changes. Sorry, that just reminded me.
No, it's the fact that you even know that, because Spare was a publication full of dirty laundry of the royal family, something I don't think the king should just forget easily, and I certainly don't think William is going to forget easily. So the publication of Spare, what that he said, the nitty-gritty details of Harry's upbringing, that's stuff that you can't just sort of say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I'd like to be friends now. Sorry about that." I think that it's horrible, and I really, really think it's going to take a lot more from Harry's side, and concessions coming from him. Like you said, the king made obviously a lot, but I didn't see a lot from Harry's side. So I just don't think he's actually mature enough to start accepting what his future might look like.
I actually think Charles has soaked up a lot at points from both his sons, a lot less from William, like certainly virtually nothing publicly, but I kind of, I feel quite sorry for Charles quite a lot of the time. I think he must have been in a really lonely position in a lot of periods of his life. They say it's lonely at the top. And he obviously, he had his reputation disintegrate during the Diana era, and I have huge sympathy for Diana. It's not that I'm taking Charles's side against her. I have massive sympathy for Diana. But then he comes out of that, and he has his sons trying to persuade him not to marry Camilla. I went through recently trying to look for quotes in which William was really praising Charles, and they are so much harder to find than you would expect. Like, he has said positive stuff, but during, Charles had this big, so in 2017, they had the 20th anniversary of Diana's death. William and Harry did loads about it. It was obviously very difficult for Charles. The following year, it was Charles's 70th birthday, and so there was a big drive from Clarence House at the time to try to kind of rehabilitate Charles, to use that as a vehicle to generate some positive publicity. And, in both the Diana period, the 2017 Diana period and the Charles 70th birthday period, there was precious little being said by his sons to help with that process. And actually, I think at that point, Harry probably did more than William did. Obviously, recent years have slightly undone some of that work.
Some of the credit, yeah.
But I just think, how lonely must that feel to be somebody who most of the people around you are your staff. You have this relationship with your sons that's defined by the kind of working environment that you live your entire life in and all the rivalries that come with it. Then, your younger son goes off to America and, tries to blow you up from afar. Like, it must be
with
really
words.
With words. Yeah,